Sound testing 1, 2. Osiris here. Stuck in the middle MAGA. These people are so good. I was trying to do a video for every day at 9 a.m. I'm doing a video on this channel. I'm trying to get my thoughts together for it. And the challenge I have is on big topics like this, my mind works like I want to get everything in one video. And what I learned from people like Eric July is, man, just do little segments. That's the best way to do it. But I'm going to go live to air out. This will be disjointed. I'm going to go live to air out my full thoughts on this very disappointing situation we're in. But this is life, and you got to work through it. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but I think there's a perspective that's not being amplified that I want to go through. I have a picture on the thumbnail of Ron DeSantis holding a snake because as of right now, I believe he is a snake. I believe he is one. I did not do an audio check, so if anybody happens to jump in, let me know if the audio sounds good. I appreciate it. And I'm doing that based now on the information I have. I'm not pretending to know everything. I am just analyzing what I see, and I'm going to make my case for it. I'm analyzing what I see and giving out my take and my information now. If something changes this moment, then I will change my position. I do not care about going back and forth on my position based on new information or new revelations, or I'm just in a different place. But here's where I am right now. I'm very heated at what's happened with this midterm. I'm going to go through this slide here by slide, and I messed that up. So I messed up the slide here, but what's on the slide is J.D. Rucker, who has a great show. He canceled. He has his YouTube still up, but he's over on Rumble now, like many other people. He's basically saying here, some of the screen is chopped off, but he's saying that DeSantis is ending Trump's political career. That's what he's saying here. And what he's saying is, this is the first. I actually thought that this is what was happening when I first analyzed this situation with Ron DeSantis being silent after Trump has taken pot shots at him. So one take that you could have is that Ron DeSantis is ending Donald Trump, and that is what he is trying to do. He's trying to end Donald Trump with his silence. That is a legitimate take to have, and I first thought that was the take as well. I think there's more context that needs to be added to that take. So I don't want to just stop at that take. So I'm going to go into more details here. And I'll share my screen here for a second to show what prompted this for me this morning. There's a lot of stuff prompting a lot of things. But that's J.D. Rucker, the whole tweet, since I messed it up on my PowerPoint. Ron DeSantis is ending Trump's political career by simply not responding. I've never seen anything like this in my life. And to be fair with JD, JD's like, I'm not taking sides here. So I'm not going at JD. It's not about him. He even said, here, I'm not backing DeSantis, he's just analyzing what he sees. So I responded, quote tweet, not going after JD, but I'm just saying DeSantis is quiet because he's a snake in the grass. That's why he's being quiet. That sums up where I'm at. Ron DeSantis' silence confirms what Trump is feeling. If I didn't have beef with Trump and Trump was coming out, I would get word back to Trump that we're good. There's no need for this. Even publicly or not publicly, that's politics. So if Ron DeSantis is the one that's going to be president and handle all of this thing, and part of that is handling the transformation from Trump to whoever the next person is handling the politics of that. And this is not about Trump. Trump is a mascot. So this is not about Trump or whether I agree with Trump or this and how Trump handled the pandemic. Don't bring that into this right now. There are millions of people. Trump is the most important populist figure that's ever lived in this country. And this is about the people who are behind him, which he just represents the movement of the populist right. So I would be concerned if I were DeSantis about the people behind the populist right movement. Regardless, DeSantis thinks he can do all this stuff. He thinks he can I think he thinks he can work with the Uniparty and govern. Remember, I played the clip where DeSantis was like, to the big donors, I don't give a F. So I think DeSantis believes he can cozy up to the establishment. I seriously believe that. I seriously believe that DeSantis thinks he can cozy up to the establishment, and then he can tell them to F off, and then he can govern the United States with a kind of a liberty philosophy. I'm not even going into that. Right now, I want to talk about, is he a populist or not? Does he care about the people or not? If Ron DeSantis cared about the people more than his aspirations, he would fall back. That's what you would do. So it's clear that Ron is contemplating, or basically it looks like he's making a move. Other outlets have reported that, but I don't need anybody to report that to me. I can see it. If Ron wasn't trying to make a move, then he would squash this. He would put the fire out. So you've got a populist movement, and now a fire has started in the house of a populist movement. I don't think Ron DeSantis is a populist, though. If he was a populist, he would say, let's put that fire out. Don Dada had beef with Bannon, called him Sloppy Bannon, went after him in that. Did you ever see Steve Bannon try to burn down the populist movement because of it? No, because Steve Bannon cares about the people. He knows Trump is the mascot. He's the one that got Trump to be the mascot in a way. So he never burned the bridge of like trying to start any type of beef or anything like that, even as Trump attacked him and called him Sloppy Steve. That's what a populist would do. I care more about the people than anybody calling me a name. I care more about the people than going to jail, basically, is what Steve Bannon is at. Ron's making a move, and if Ron's making a move, he can only do that. There is no path for anyone to make a move against Trump without the help of corporate anti-Trump slime. So don't tell me about how Ron DeSantis is going to govern. He's cozying up to some of the slimiest sleazeballs out there. And that ain't the way. There is no way. There's no path for me. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's where I'm at. I'm not seeing any path for him to govern in a way that I can respect. I respect how he's governed Florida. Don't get me wrong. This is a whole different thing right now, though. That's where I'm at with DeSantis. I'm going to take a second, see if I can do a quick sound check, because I don't want to go back to this and listen to the video. So that's, if you want to know why I'm considering DeSantis a snake, that's it. You don't even need to watch the rest of the video. It's his silence. His silence is what it is. If Kari Lake right now is cool with Trump, they could fall out. Everybody falls out. A lot of people fall out with Trump. Like I said, Steve Bannon fell out with Trump. I guarantee you, if Kari Lake fell out with Trump, she wouldn't be handling it with silence. Marjorie Taylor Greene, they wouldn't be handling it with silence. They would be caring more about the people. How do the people think? I did a video on Candace Owens. Candace Owens talked about how Trump came at her, and what she was doing was getting her feelings out. She didn't give a damn about the people or anything like that. She tried to put it off like, well, I'm going to give you all this inside information. That inside information doesn't help us, Candace. That's an inside baseball between you and Trump. So that's why I look at it, and I'm not against Candace Owens, but that's not a populist take. Okay, so I just did a quick sound check through the feed. It sounds okay. So let's go back through some of this stuff here. Now, this meme, I don't think it's perfect because I'm not familiar. Well, I do know why they probably put the sunflower president on here. The sunflower president, so this is a graphic, if you're just listening, that says Team DeSantis. And on the graphic are people like Ben Shapiro, Joe Scarborough, Jeb Bush, all these, Karl Rove, Paul Ryan, all these, and then the sunflower president, the president of the sunflower country. I think that came from actually Christina Pushaw. I don't know how to pronounce her last name. I think it's Pushaw. Got no beef with her. I'm like her, but she had a tweet that was celebrating the sunflower president's election from years ago. So that's probably why they put that on that team, if you wonder why he's on there. But the point of this is we have to analyze. If your team I'm not against you. We just got to talk about this. And I'm breaking this down too. After a football game, or really basketball a lot too, after a basketball or football game, the professionals break down the film. You've got film study. So we went through a midterm and MAGA got wrecked, period. It didn't happen like MAGA wanted it to happen. And now I'm going to go into, stay with me, I'm going to do other videos on this too to break it down into more concise, like 8 to 10 minute type videos. But I'm going to just do it here too to kind of talk through it. Looking back at the game film, I kind of knew something was up. I didn't know what it was, but I knew something was up. And this is the Uniparty. The Uniparty is behind Team DeSantis. So right now, Team DeSantis is choosing to cozy up to the Uniparty instead of putting the fire out between the people, the populists. I don't care even if Ron DeSantis could govern the country like he does Florida, sacrificing that fire of the people, I am not for it. That's not the path I'm for. I would not sacrifice that for that end. That's what he's doing. That's the choice he's made. Karl Rove, what a sleazeball. What a sleazeball. Let me go to talk a little bit about Karl Rove is Team DeSantis. So if you're Team DeSantis, you're on the same side of Karl Rove. You're on the same side of Jeb Bush. You're on the same side of Meghan McCain. You're on the same side of Paul Ryan. You're on the same side of Mitch McConnell. You're on the same side of Kevin McCarthy. And this is interesting how this is all coming out, because MAGA's going to try and make a move potentially at Kevin McCarthy. And it's interesting how all this anti-Trump stuff is coming out. And now Paul Ryan, young gun with Kevin McCarthy, is like now moving to Team DeSantis. Do you think this is all an accident? This was planned I think this was planned from way back. It's one of the greatest, MAGA is one of the greatest populist movement we've ever seen in the country. And what they're trying to do is one of the greatest political chess moves to destroy it, is what they're trying to do through DeSantis. So if DeSantis is down with teaming with that, then I'm out on DeSantis. I don't care anything about how he governs. I am completely out on him. And that's where he is right now with his silence. Let me go look at Karl Rove for a second. I just quote tweeted something from Kathy Barnett. I haven't tied her into this also, but I wouldn't be surprised if the attacks on her, how she lost, comes back on that too. That's complicated because Trump didn't back her. He backed Oz. But Kathy Barnett would have been a problem. It's not even just about what Trump backed. It's about who is a populist, who is a not. You would have a populist like Kathy Barnett in the Senate. So that, and I'm gonna show a tweet here from Kathy Barnett tweeted this, and a lot of people did. But I think it's appropriate in this video to talk about how Kathy Barnett tweeted it. So let me look that up here. I have a whole thread where I'm trying to keep this stuff so I can reference it quickly instead of it. Twitter's search is it's really bad. I'm still having a problem finding it. I literally just tweeted it too. But if you're just joining, thanks for coming in. I did find it. So I'm going to share it here. I'm going to talk about Karl Rove. Again, if you're Team DeSantis, you're siding with this person. So I don't choose who I side with based on other people. I don't. So if Karl Rove says 2 + 2 is 4, I'm like, Karl Rove is right. I think that's what it means to kind of be independent and have your own mindset. But what other issue? Name one other political issue other than DeSantis. If you're Team DeSantis right now, name one issue other than DeSantis that you agree with Joe Scarborough, Karl Rove, all of them together, and this is conjunction, not or. And they all agree. Meghan McCain, Karl Rove, Joe Scarborough, Kevin McCarthy, Mitch McConnell. Oh, name one issue other than Ron DeSantis that you agree with all of those people on. I'll wait. You probably won't find one. Karl Rove, let me share the screen here. Make sure the screen is, yep. Karl Rove is Team DeSantis. So this is a Kathy Barnett take. I didn't get to do a video on this, but I was watching this before the election. Kathy Barnett tweeted, Karl Rove is spending $2.5 million in latest ad to support Shapiro over Mastriano. That's to support the Democrat who was already had already had a huge funding advantage, already established, already probably could have won even without that 2.5 million. But to support the Democrat over the Trump endorsed Mastriano in Pennsylvania for governor, spent 2.5 million, Karl Rove. So Kathy Barnett says, once more, rhinos are telling conservatives to employ the old hold your nose strategy while actively sabotaging a conservative candidate. You keep falling for it, they will keep doing it. That's from Kathy Barnett. It should not be a surprise now why they tried to take her down, like in my opinion. I still have to do more research to really back that up. But obviously, they didn't want her. They're fine with Oz. Oz is Mitt Romney. They're fine with that. They didn't want this. They didn't want Kathy in the Senate. That's why I was so passionate about Kathy. That's why I said I'm for Lake Barnett 2024. So she says that. And then so I say Karl Rove is Team DeSantis. He spent money to support Shapiro to beat Trump's pick, Mastriano. And for the wrap-up smear, Karl Rove writes an article in the Wall Street Journal about how the midterms were Trump's fault. There it is right there. With no red wave, Trump is out at sea, while he was funding the opponent of Trump in Pennsylvania for governor. Republicans had a simple problem. Too many nominees were nuts or knuckleheads. Why there was no hashtag I funded the other side too. They sabotaged MAGA. MAGA got sabotaged, got played, got bamboozled, got hoodwinked, got clowned. We have to acknowledge that, learn from it, watch the film, and see what happened. Do you see the wrap-up smear? Biden does the anti-MAGA speeches. They prop up, they pay to have the people like Mastriano win their primaries. The Karl Roves of the world, the Chuck Schumers of the world. I have a video where I analyze that, I have put tweets on it with the receipts on that. They pay to get the anyone who said the stuff that would get me a strike on YouTube about the last process, they used that as the mantra. Look at the primaries. Every single one that was out in the open about the process that would get me a strike on YouTube, they got propped up in the primary by the Uniparty. Then after they won the primary, the Uniparty, even Republicans, put money against them, flooded the system with money, somehow got young people to come out in a midterm with all the money they put in. They got that to work, and they crushed MAGA. And then for the wrap-up smear, they blame Trump and prop up DeSantis. I'm not here for it. You think I'm that stupid? They think you're stupid. I don't want to talk about DeSantis' policies. I don't want to talk about Trump's policies. What I just said has nothing to do with their policy. That's what happened. So people are getting distracted like, oh, what about this policy? First of all, do you agree with me that that's what happened? We can talk about the policy separate. I want to tell me where the lie is so far. Tell me where I'm lying. I'm looking back at the film and it's all becoming crystal clear now. I don't want to talk about Trump and the pandemic right now. That's irrelevant to everything I just said. You're changing the topic. You're doing a straw man. Talk to me about that. Talk to me about what I just said about what they did in setting up MAGA. And then now the biggest win for Trump in the midterms would be Kari Lake. Nobody was ride or die with Trump, and really, Trump is the mascot, with MAGA more than Kari Lake. Nobody was more dangerous. She's like a more polished Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump. The worst nightmare. The worst nightmare for the Uniparty. And what's happening right now? They can't even count the damn votes. You think that's an accident? Allegedly. While they're propping up DeSantis, attacking Trump, and the votes aren't coming out, you release a little bit of the votes that are left there. It's projected winner. You don't even have to finish counting. You could just project, it would be projected winner Kari Lake. And all of a sudden they're slow rolling it. The election was Tuesday. They haven't even counted the votes from the same day. They got like 400,000 just in Maricopa County. The same area we had questions with before. And you want me to think that this is an accident? Are you effing crazy? Nothing happens at this level, at this scale in politics that's an accident. Are you loco? Are you insane? It's all coordinated, allegedly. Or it's an accident that fit together, just like it would be like taking a 1,000-piece puzzle, throwing it up in the air, and it lands with all the pieces together. And then somebody telling me it's a coincidence. Nobody put the pieces together. Katie Hobbs, it all makes sense. Why would Katie Hobbs stay in the basement, not debate, even in her primary? She knew what was going on. They don't even have to communicate. They don't have to tell her. She's not stupid. She's like, okay, I got it. I know what's happening. Kari Lake's going to win, but you see the timing of it. See, you can't have Kari Lake win now. You would wait until maybe a Friday. You would wait for a news day that was very bad, a low-key news day where some other stories breaking, a Friday, Saturday during football, Sunday during football, people are all distracted. You would wait for that to drop. So when Kari Lake does her victory speech, where she's got some fire and heat waiting for people, you do it where the least amount of people are watching. Why? Because that's Trump's biggest victory right there. That represents that it's not an anti-MAGA stance. So if it's an anti-MAGA stance, then how is Kari Lake rallying in Arizona? How does Kari Lake have thousands of people behind her in Arizona? Because she was so good, she overcame all that nonsense, the spending and all that stuff. And then now during that time frame, while it's being drawn out, they're attacking Trump. So he doesn't have his biggest victory of the midterms, proving against the narrative that it's an anti-Trump, it's an anti-MAGA movement that really made the midterms bad. Well, then what happened with Kari Lake? Then explain that. This is not some kind of coincidence. That's the problem I have right now. So I'll continue. That's Karl Rove. So friend of show, peasant journalist was asking me about why. I've already gone over that. Why am I saying DeSantis is a snake in the grass? Because he's proven to me that he's a snake in the grass at this point. Why wouldn't you come out and say, number one, why wouldn't you want to be VP? Number two, why wouldn't you just come out and say, I don't have beef with Trump? I'm not going to go into this. I'm the governor for Florida. I'm not spending a whole speech on this, but Trump endorsed me when I first won. I wouldn't be here. Kari Lake wouldn't be here. Marjorie Taylor Greene wouldn't be here. The movement wouldn't be where it is without Trump. So I'm going to holler at him behind the scenes. We're not going to do this publicly, but I'm going to make it right with him behind the scenes. Why couldn't he say that? Trump forced DeSantis to show his hand. That's what Trump is doing. He's coming out. It's not preemptive because he sees stuff behind the scenes. Trump is not setting the first blow on the punch here. That's not what's happening. DeSantis allegedly made the first punch behind the scenes, and Trump is punching back openly because he wants DeSantis to show his hand. DeSantis can't speak because he doesn't want to squash anything with Trump. That's why. He can't speak because he doesn't care about Trump supporters. He cares about his aspirations. This ain't complicated. You see it all coming together. You have to be paying attention, and I don't blame people who aren't. You watch, you're not going to get this on mainstream media. So most people, if you're just watching Fox News you're not going to get, not even Tucker's talking about this like this. You're not going to get it. You've got to expand out. And how many people are expanding out? So I don't blame people for not understanding it. My heat is not for people who are pro-DeSantis. Don't get me wrong on that. I'm just explaining where I'm at. If you're where you are, that's fine. I've bigged up DeSantis. I've criticized Trump. That's not what this is about. I'm just trying to show you what's happening. You might think, okay, DeSantis has already showed he can cozy up with the establishment and then rule in the favor of people. Fine. I don't trust him anymore because of this. But if that's your take, I'm not even really arguing that. I think you have a legit reason for that take. I'm just not with you on that. So why do I like MAGA so much? I'll just stop and talk about this. That's why I have this tweet here, talking to peasant journalists. I am for Medicare for all. I'm for universal basic income. I'm pro-transhumanism, and I'm pro-choice. And most people in MAGA disagree with all of those things. But I have never once had anyone who is like populist right, MAGA, come at me sideways because of that. They just like, okay, that you might be off here. You don't know what you're talking about. That type of nobody comes at me like sideways like that. You do some stuff like in the Democrat Party or with the left, the populist left, they annihilate your character. They destroy you. The MAGA movement, I like the people. Nothing to do with Donald Trump. The people of MAGA, and I try to take MAGA and make it my own thing because I think this is a political propaganda warfare. I can take your symbol and make it whatever I want it to be. And I think the people of the MAGA movement, and that really hate to see what Joe Biden did with those speeches. I messed my mic up on the live where I talked about the Joe Biden red sermon. One of the worst speeches we've ever seen from a president, and it was attacking you and me. Even if you don't associate with MAGA, you're essentially MAGA. You might not want to associate with it, but Joe Biden's talking about you if you didn't take the medical procedure, if you disagree with the money to the sunflower country and all these type of things. He's talking about you, whether you want to wear MAGA or not. And I think it's a great movement. I think it's a peaceful movement. It's a God, country, family, love movement. And that's why I rock with it. Populist left, it's too much drama, it's bad, they have bad marketing, they don't have any type of, they're too cozied up to the establishment. They think they're populist left, but they basically agree with Biden on a lot of stuff. They just don't think he's going far enough. I side more with the populist right, even though obviously you can see why I'm in the middle. If DeSantis wasn't a snake, again, if you're just joining, thank you for joining, he would come out immediately behind the scenes or publicly and say there's no beef. It's that simple. Wouldn't it be that simple? DeSantis is a corporatist. Talked about this with Candace Owens. I know the corporate type very well. When you're trying to climb the corporate ladder, you've got to strike while the iron is hot. Because 4 years, it's easy for me, and this is what I believe, it's easy for me to say, DeSantis, you got to wait your 4 years. It's easy for me to say that. When you are a ladder climber, a fast tracker, you don't wait 4 years. You don't care about anybody else. You step on whoever's, I'll pause, figurative, I'll pause, neck, you need to get up the next rung. You do not wait 4 years. That's what a corporatist does. Obviously, that's not what a populist will do what they need to do. I think Carrie Lake is a better candidate for president. We'll see how she governs. It's very risky for me to say that, but Donald Trump had no experience when he got picked. I think Carrie Lake is a better candidate than Donald Trump for president. If Carrie Lake was doing what Ron DeSantis, and I think she's better than Ron DeSantis too. If Carrie Lake was doing what Ron DeSantis is doing right now, I would flame her too. She wouldn't do it. She wouldn't handle it that way. Why? Because she's a populist and Ron DeSantis is a corporatist. That's why. And someone who doesn't have experience, it makes sense that they would be a populist. Going back to it, I just did these slides. Morning Joe Scarborough, and I have a live back where I said this really does hurt my heart when I say this. I'm not an emotional dude. I mean this in the most sincere way. What the positions that Mika Brzezinski and Joe Scarborough have taken, these are people who I think very highly of. Mika's book, Know Your Value, is unbelievable. I think they're great people. I've watched the show. I've watched Joe since Scarborough Country. I like Willie Geist. When I say this hurts me, I don't know them personally. But as much as it could hurt for somebody you don't know personally, that's how much it hurts for me that I have to do this. That we are so fundamentally fractured that we are political enemies. Don't want it to be that way, but this is where we're at. Joe Scarborough says, so if you're Team DeSantis, you agreed with Karl Rove and all the shenanigans he played and the wrap-up smear he did on Trump. Morning Joe says midterms coronated Ron DeSantis. You're on the same side with Joe, Mika. Well, I don't know if Mika would say that, but I don't think she would say that because she might not be able to. Privately, she might. It coordinated Ron DeSantis rebuked Trump. And I was wondering why, wow, Joe Biden has really, in the attacks of Ron DeSantis during the pandemic and all that, he's really elevated Ron DeSantis. I wonder why. Maybe that's just being too conspiratorial. But I'm looking at it through a different lens right now. If I'm right and Ron DeSantis is cozied up to the uniparty, then it would make sense that you would want to big him up. Obviously, Joe Biden can't big him up in a positive way, but he can big him up in a let me attack him, let me get him press. And then now when we're in the wrap-up smear part after the midterms, Morning Joe goes on and says, Ron DeSantis is coordinated. Everybody, it's Ron DeSantis now. Now, all of a sudden, you're agreeing with all these people that there's not one policy that you can tell me that you agree with all these people on. There's not one that you could find other than Team DeSantis right now, which is really odd. That's what Milo was talking about with Tipcast. He said, if you agree with Meghan McCain, you're on the wrong side. It's not just that. You're agreeing with Meghan McCain and all these people at the same time. Kamala Harris talked about how she liked Venn diagrams. Look at the Venn diagram of all these uniparty scrubs and anti-populists that you have to intersect with all of them to find the dot, and the only dot is Team DeSantis. You need to reevaluate. So this is the same person. Joe Scarborough, who remember when the whole trucker protest was going on in Canada. Joe Scarborough was anti-trucker. Joe Scarborough and Mika. So all of a sudden, he's anti-populist. That's crystal clear. Crystal clear that they're anti-pop. The most peaceful, one of the best protests that we've ever seen. They weren't anti-Black Lives Matter protests, which turned into violence, there were some good-hearted people, but the violent people used the good-hearted people as a cover for their violence. And not a word, not a peep from Joe and Mika. So now you agree with Joe. So you agree with Joe on DeSantis, and he's the same person that came and brought you this.
Downtown area of Ottawa as protesters rallied against vaccine mandates, masks, and lockdowns.
That seems like an interesting way to spend your weekend.
The demonstrations were initially aimed at pushback against vaccine mandates for truck drivers crossing the U.S.-Canada border. But the movement escalated into an expression of disapproval with the Canadian government's COVID-19 policies. Officials say several investigations are underway into reports of severe vandalism and criminal behavior, including the desecration of national monuments. Meanwhile, Ottawa.
And we covered that, all BS, complete nonsense, complete BS. The protest was peace. It was peaceful. I was going to say, is it mostly peaceful? No, not like that. It was a peaceful.
Ottawa Mayor Jim Watson said some protesters harassed a soup kitchen, demanding free meals because their refusal to wear masks.
That was debunked. It's like they can't even find like the one incident that was debunked. The soup thing was debunked. I don't know which video it was in. Talked about it in a live months ago. So this is the Canadian trucker protest. What's Joe? The person that so Joe Scarborough is behind DeSantis, in my opinion. He might say, well, I'm just saying he's coordinated. I'm not behind him. BS. He's behind pushing him up. And he agrees with, listen to his take on the truckers. This is the person that you're agreeing on with who should be propped up for the GOP.
Meant they were not to order in restaurants. That soup kitchen tweeted COVID protesters were given meals to defuse the conflict and that this weekend's events have caused significant strain on our operations at an already difficult time.
So these anti-vaxxers actually took food from the mouth.
There he is, the anti-V. They just made up this term, anti-V. You have all kinds of V's all up in you. I have all kinds of V's up in me. I said, nah, that ain't. I'm gonna stop. And then now you're at anti-V. This is the guy you're siding with.
Mouths of the homeless,
hungry, yeah,
because they're so put upon because they have that vaccine. I'm just curious again. Where were these?
Look at the smear. He's trying to smear the whole Canadian trucker protest based off a debunked soup story. That's the one you're agreeing with on DeSantis. That's the anti-populist, overtly anti-people. When I say populist, all I say is when there's a decision, do you side with people over First Amendment, free speech? Do you side with the power of free speech over people or corporations or the government? Populist always sides with the people when there's any kind of debate. Obviously, was the trucker protest, is there legit concern? Joe and Mika, when Black Lives Matter came, it's okay, this is what happened, but there's some legit concerns. I agree with that. I absolutely, even though I don't agree with the concerns, I care about, there are concerns and we have to address them. In the Canadian trucker, nope. They're taking one story about the soup and try to smear everybody.
They're so put upon because they have that vaccine. I'm just curious again. Where were these protests when people were required to get 5 vaccines to start school? Where were these protests when people were required to give their children 5 vaccines?
They were in the doctor's office getting vaccines.
They were in the doctor's office getting vaccines, and they were making fun of left-wingers on the West Coast for being loopy anti-vaxxers.
Okay.
Now they have met the enemy, and the enemy, their enemy, is themselves, because they've become what they hated. They've become what they mocked. And
you see what happened there? I'm just speculating, but he checked himself here because he was going to say that, and just as speculation, I don't know, allegedly, just my opinion. Because I'm live right now. I know when you check yourself, like you're okay, I'm going to say something, but it might not come out right. Look at this.
Vaxxers. Okay. Now they have met the enemy, and the enemy, their enemy.
He checked himself there. Because when you look at who's the political enemy of the truckers, it's the cabal. He didn't want to say that, in my opinion.
The anti-vaxxers. Okay. Now they have met the enemy, and the enemy, their enemy, is themselves, because they've become.
Their enemies are themselves. What? That doesn't make any sense. He was going to say, in my opinion, the cabal, Trudeau, but he knew, like, in that moment, like, ooh, people might actually agree with that. So let me twist that somewhere else.
What they hated. They've become what they mocked. And now they're taking food from soup kitchens because they're so put upon for being asked to do what they've been asked to do, required to do their entire lives. It's a cult.
Yes, it is. A historic.
This is the guy. So this is the same guy who's like, DeSantis is coordinated. It should be coordinated. DeSantis is the guy. That's the side you're on? I'm good, bro. Like, I don't know, but I'm not going to be on that side. It is highly unlikely, I would say nearly 0%, that Joe and I would agree on the right person to be president. And he's right now on Team DeSantis. And I might not go through everybody, but like everybody on Team DeSantis has that type of vibe to them. You be careful what side you're on. Make sure you're on the side that you really want to be on. They out here playing. This is one of the greatest political moves that I think they've made. Really smart. Paul Ryan blames disappointing GOP election results on what? Trump hangover. Who are we going after at Speaker? his boy, his fellow boy who was the part of the Young Guns. Remember Kevin McCarthy was a part. It was Eric Cantor, Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy's been the biggest sleaze. Really, he's a great politician. These are smart people. And Kevin McCarthy's like, they might try to come for me, so make sure the red wave isn't too hard. We work with the Democrats allegedly and squash that red wave. Okay, Republicans got a little bit of majority potentially. Okay, I can handle that, but they're going to come at me for speaker. So I need some help here. DeSantis rises, Trump, take Trump's power, influence down. So you have the Paul Gosars, you got the Marjorie Taylor Greene, you got the Matt Gaetz. Their political power, they try to weaken it because now you've got the base kind of fractured. Marjorie Taylor Greene is Team Trump all the way. You see how it works? It's just fitting together like a puzzle. It's right there out in the open for you to see. And DeSantis is cool with all of it. So I don't care how DeSantis is going to govern. If you're cool with how they're breaking this down right now, you ain't for me, bruh. You're not the right one. I'll big up the people who I more trust and roll with. You ain't the one. That's what's happening right now. You got Paul Ryan, Team DeSantis. And believe it or not, back in the day when I was blue-pilled, I liked Paul Ryan a lot. Thought he was going to be president. I didn't really fully understand the ramifications and where we are with all this stuff. Now I'm kind of like, oh, I can kind of see how who helped me see how the world is working? It was Donald Trump. It was Donald Trump. When Donald Trump was saying the fake media, I didn't know. I had no idea. I didn't even know years after he had become president. I didn't know. He was the one that opened up the eyes. Carrie Lake's, Marjorie Taylor Greene's, myself, maybe many of you who are former Obama. So if somebody's rising politically, you don't have any acknowledgement of that, you're going to try. Trump should be treated as an incumbent. That's how he should be treated. But that's not what Ron DeSantis is doing. Because if Trump was an incumbent, which he's not, obviously, Ron DeSantis, I don't think he would be doing any of this. Don't forget the Young Guns. These are the Young Guns. I put a little snake emojis up there. A new generation of conservative leaders. All these guys would be Team DeSantis. Eric, Paul, and Kevin. So, I mean, if you guys are going to stay Team DeSantis, I respect that. Maybe I'll do some Young Gun merch for you so you can put DeSantis's face on that list and you can rock who you roll with right now. I'll be happy to do it if it sells. Let's get that grift going. If that's how you guys want to roll. I just want to make sure, and the real reason I want to do it is I want to show where you are politically. Doesn't make me happy to do this. Doesn't make me happy to say this. I wish Ron DeSantis would have acquiesced. I wish Ron DeSantis was really for the people. It wouldn't be this difficult. It's ugly. You can't. Trump already announced the date. It's too late. I did a live where I said the fall of Trump. I think I have it on this slide here. It's on this channel. This video is still on the. Don't think I'm some robot that's just going to follow anything Trump does. It's just a rant. It's like a 7-minute rant, but I'm not afraid to criticize Trump. So don't get this whole thing twisted. If you wanted Ron DeSantis, you should have talked Trump out of running again. It's too late. He already set a date. Once you get that bull inside of the arena, he's not coming out. It's over. You can't stop it now. So considering that, DeSantis needs to get the hell up out of the way, or the bull's going to go after the flag. So this is a tweet from me from back in this is July of 2021. I could smell something was in the air. I didn't know what it was. I only do this as a hobby. Maybe if I had more time to research the funding and all that, maybe I would have. I probably could have sniffed this out if I had more time. But I just knew This is from, or I don't know if that was from 2021. I think it was from 2021. This tweet here. Let me put it back up. This tweet is from 2021. And I said, so what's happening here? It's about a lot of things. It was about Virginia. So after Virginia, after Youngkin won, and I'm going to get to Winsome Sears in a moment, and I'm sorry that it's not going to be a positive mention. I've said a lot of positive things about Winsome Sears, and this one is not going to be positive. But it's about Virginia. She's lieutenant governor. She's Team Youngkin. Team Youngkin is Team Uniparty. So after there was that special election with the Virginia gubernatorial race, and after that, it was clear people weren't for the gender ideology, the race baiting, all that stuff from the Democrat Party. But the Democrat Party kept doubling down on it. This is Tony Blinken said, responsible nations must not shrink from the scrutiny of their human rights record. Rather, they should be transparent with the intent to grow and do better. That is why I'm announcing a formal invitation for the UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of racism to visit the U.S. I did a video on this. It's disgusting. Don't bring anybody outside of our house in our house to talk about the baggage in our house. That's like you having beef with your marriage, you and your spouse having beef, and somebody from another, this ain't even a friend. This ain't even a friend. Like, it's just some random person coming, not a therapist, just some random person coming in to talk about the beef with you and your wife. Oh, hell no. Get the hell out of my house. Not even talking about the beef or whether it's legit or not. First of all, you get the hell up out of here. You ain't got nothing to do with this. Blinken's bringing in, I want to avoid certain words. Blinken's bringing in people who believe in a one government system for Earth. That's what he's trying to do, to bring in here, talking about our baggage and beef that we have going back to slavery and Jim Crow and all that. Just evil out in the open. Nobody likes that. But the midterms, the voting of the midterms basically voted to support that ideology, in my opinion. So I said back then, I was like, something very strange is happening. These decisions clearly will lead to them, these Democrats, these Demorats, losing big in 2022 and 2024. These decisions aren't popular. So I'm like, this is strange. They're not stupid people. Why would they be making these decisions? I said they seem to know something we don't know. I'm giving them credit. I'm giving them the assumption that they are smarter than There's nothing that I know that they don't know. They know something that we don't know that's going to keep them in power. At least that's how they're acting. And it was proven true. Looking back at this election, all my worries about that were proven. I dropped those worries leading into the election. I propped up the big wave, the big red wave, the big tsunami, because I wanted to be positive going into this political battle. And I didn't know what the thing was that they knew that I didn't know. So why am I going to keep talking about something that's just in thin air? And then they propped up the polling. The polling looked better. And I thought the polling that looked better was even suppressed. So I thought on top of the general ballot of 3 to 5%, depending on the polling, I thought there might have been another 3 to 5% on top of that for, who you might consider MAGA candidates, but it wasn't there. They knew something that we didn't know. They doubled down on the racism. They doubled down on the gender ideology. They doubled down on staying in the basement. Weird candidates like Maggie Hassan, who's just one of Maggie Hassan makes Katie Hobbs look weird. And she won easily. They knew that they were going to win easily. They knew they were going to get this young vote out, which I still don't. Maybe it was TikTok. I don't know. I don't know how they did it. Maybe they knew the indoctrination through elementary, high school, and the ones who are voting are mostly obviously in college now, that they were indoctrinated. You look at it, it was all planned. You look at it and you talk about the identity of LGBTQ. I've talked about it a million times. MAGA is not anti-LGBTQ, but they smear MAGA as it. They put these kids through school and they say, you don't even have to be gay to be an LGBTQ. One of the A's in the plus, AAA, all that other letters is ally. So you don't want to be hateful, right? As an 18-year-old, 16-year-old, and then you go into college, now you're in the midterms where you can vote. You don't want to be evil, right? So you're an ally. You're not even gay, but you're an ally. You have to be an ally or you're a bigot. You have to be considered. I said, I am an ally, just maybe not how I do consider myself an ally. But they put that peer pressure on the kids. The kids are of voting age. Now, all they need to do is get them out. They smear MAGA as anti-LGBTQ, which is a complete lie. It is a complete smear. So all they have to do is big up in the primary, the pro-Trump people. And it wasn't all of them. It was in these specific areas where they didn't win. And get young people out and they just vote. They vote for down the line. They vote for a dead person. They vote for Fetterbot. It doesn't matter. They don't even have independent thinking. And younger people, naturally, they don't have as much to conserve, so they're not little c conservatives. They don't have a home. They don't even see a path to get those things. So they're almost like, well, we are with the people who want a one earth government. The Constitution's kind of trash. And you can see how that all filtered into this. It's brilliant. It all comes together. It all fits together. Maybe it was all a coincidence, but whatever it was, all the puzzle pieces got put together. I don't look at anything like that as a coincidence. Even the creation of our universe, that's God. I don't look at it as, it's a 1 in a quadruple billion probability event for our universe to be created. Yeah, that's why I believe in God. I don't believe in these coincidences, like all these puzzle pieces fit together to be anti-MAGA, anti-Trump, and then now it's supposed to be, now I'm the lunatic because I'm like this, they all fit. So somebody put something together, and then now I'm the lunatic. That is not going to fly. So I did that video when I talked about the fall of Trump. When I talked about the fall of Trump, it was from a populist standpoint. Trump failed during the pandemic. But then I did another video that talked about the administrative state and how Trump did try to fight that, and Peter Navarro talked about it, the reason why I was still with Trump is because the people around Trump, they understand the problem. They got books about it. They talk about it on the War Room every day. So Trump goes back in again. I don't think it's going to happen again. If you think it would happen again, I can't blame you. I don't know. Neither one of us know, but you probably have more proof because he failed the first time. But I look at all the people he surrounded himself with, and he's allegedly, leaked out he's severing ties with his daughter and son-in-law because they're trouble. That's why Ye talked about them too. They're trouble. They're not MAGA. They got to get out of there. So I looked back and I said, I think Trump's making the right changes for me to back him again. That's separate from this whole other thing, but I think it's worth talking about. And I talked about this already. You think this is an accident too, that Carrie Lake, we're all waiting for these ballots to be counted. If they would have counted these ballots first, they probably would have been called by now. Remember what happened in the primary with Carrie Lake? Same thing, but it didn't take as long because it's not as serious. It was just the primary. So Carrie Lake, we went to sleep. Carrie Lake was down, I believe. It was really crazy, and I was chatting with other people like, man, this is kind of crazy. But then that's when I found out about the Charlie Kirk stuff, and I watched Charlie Kirk and Jack Posobiec, and they were breaking it down, and they were like, well, hold up. Look at the votes they can, and look at the ones outstanding. So the next day, I think it was the next day, we saw, all these votes came in, Carrie Lake's in the lead, then they called the election, and then it took another week, I think, for them to count. So they made it look like, so when Carrie Lake did her victory speech, they had called the election, but they still had votes to count. So it looked like Carrie Lake had barely beat, who was her, I already forgot the name of the person that she was up against in the primary. So they said the narrative was Carrie Lake ekes out a victory against her primary challenger. Then the votes come in weeks later, she won by like 5%. in a race that had like 4 people. That's a huge margin for a race that had like 4 people in the primary. So you see why it's just a coincidence that the narrative worked out like that? Maybe it was, but I'm not believing it. And then so here it comes again, slow rolling it. Maybe so she's going to be projected winner, in my opinion, at some point. It won't take long. That's why it's slow rolling these batches. Once you get into these batches of the same day voting, it's a wrap. Because people saw that movie with all the donkeys. It was about 2,000 of them, and they said, "Well, I think I might want to go in and drop mine in just to be sure, just to be safe, just to be." And for whatever reason, that really took off in Arizona. Maybe it's the influence of Charlie Kirk and them. They're based out of there, but they really dug in on that. Like and that was the controversial place. Remember from last time. So, and Carrie Lake ran on. They call her a liar because of what she believes in the past stuff. But now she looks like she's been proven accurate. At the very least, even if you're a Democrat NPC, even the Democrat NPCs look at the election. I don't want to say that word. Let me pause. They go back and look at the process and they say, this is some dumb ish. This is really stupid. Even they have to acknowledge that. And who would change it? Who would lead changing it? The person that they're slow rolling the votes. Who backs that person? Who does she back? She's one of the biggest openly Trump backers out there. Most polished. She's obviously the natural one at this point to take over for that movement. How do you stop that? You bring in DeSantis. Perfect timing. I guess it's just one heck of a coinky dink, isn't it? Funny stuff. So that's all the slides. So I was going to put together more, and I was like, let me just go live, and then I'll do small stuff to maybe articulate my point better. That's where I'm coming from. I'm going to go through this. Some of this stuff is going to be repetitive, but I didn't really get to put together my thought piece by piece. So this will help me think stuff through. So I appreciate you joining. Haven't looked at any of the comments yet. I just got to get through this stuff. I don't know how long I'm going to be on this live, but I'm looking for my thread. Okay, so here's my thread. Started with JD Rucker. And I said, DeSantis is quiet because he's a snake in the grass. And that's when I said that's when I looked for the picture of him with the snake. I always leave room to be wrong. At this point, I'm solid in that take. If he comes out right now and says, I love the MAGA movement, I hate to see what's happening here, my focus is Florida, but with Donald Trump, I'm going to go talk. We're going to have dinner. We're going to talk about this. Not publicly, but we're going to talk about this behind the scenes. Hurts me to see this. Then I'll change. Then I might change my position. But obviously, he hasn't done that. Anybody explain to me why? I haven't heard that yet. Why hasn't he done that? And listen, anybody out there? Anybody can anybody answer that question for me? Donald Trump is the most important populist figure that's ever existed. You might say Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson didn't exist during the time of social media. He didn't exist during the time of the Clintons, the machine. What Donald Trump did was one of the most amazing things that has ever happened in American politics. How he did it was through the people. Let me take a sidebar on that. I'll take a sidebar on that. Let's look back at this, one of the best interviews. I don't know if they'll copyright. They might copyright me on this, but as long as they don't pull the stream down. This is the Steve Bannon interview with the PBS. He's talking about Trump and stuff. Trump inside.
About this, okay? Now it's permeated not just political culture because of Trump and now people like AOC, etc. It's permeated popular culture. We now have the most engaged the country is all about politics. Every dinner party you go to.
This interview is about the Trump run. So the title of it is America's Great Divide, Steve Bannon first interview, Frontline. This is from 2 years ago, but he's talking about the run of Trump in I've literally watched this like 10 times, the whole thing. It is just, because I'll like be mowing the lawn. I'm like, oh, let me listen to that Bannon interview again. It's that good. It's that amazing.
Every conversation you have, Saturday Night Live, all the late night comics. If you look back at Johnny Carson's era, and you look back at the Tonight Show and all this he have maybe a few jokes about Reagan at the beginning, but now the heart of the nightly setup of Kimmel and all the Tonight Show and all that is politics. And why is that? You now have people that are engaged. They've bought in, and it's aspirational. It's part of their lifestyle. It's like you wear a certain brand of shirt, you have a certain brand of politics.
Right.
And this is what I mean by mobilization. We're not in an era of persuasion anymore. Everybody, there's so many, since the social media has disintermediated the traditional media aspects, and that's one of the things Andrew understood.
So they knew. So you hear Steve Bannon's like, it's about bringing people out. How do you bring people out? Money. That's it. It's you do your TikTok, you do your grassroots. Well, it's not grassroots, but you spend your money to get your door knockers. It takes a ton of money, especially to get young people out. So it wasn't about like the issues. It was just about turnout. It's been like that for years now.
It's like Breitbart, and on the left you got Talking Points Memo and the Huffington Post that have people engaged. They have people buying in. They have people passionate about this. Okay? Now it's permeated not just political culture because of Trump and now people like AOC, etc. It's permeated popular culture. We now have the most engaged the country is all about politics. Every dinner party you go to, every conversation you have, Saturday Night Live, all the late night comics. If you look back at Johnny Carson's era, and you look back at the Tonight Show and all this he have maybe a few jokes about Reagan at the beginning, but now the heart of the nightly setup of Kimmel and all the Tonight Show and all that is politics. And why is that? You now have people that are engaged. They've bought in, and it's aspirational. It's part of their lifestyle. It's like you wear a certain.
So I'm going to pause to answer a question from a friend of show, Katie Maria. Katie Maria says, watching Milo change your mind on Trump, I know it had influence on Tim Pool. I have not watched Tim Pool since the aftermath of that. Tim Pool seems to be Team DeSantis, right, from what I've seen, but I have not watched Tim Pool since the Milo interview. And I knew it was going to have I don't know what effect, but I could see it in Tim's face that Milo had an effect. So Milo didn't change my mind on any of this. He helped me maybe articulate it or look at it clearer. But I had already been talking about the same thing I think I'd already said what Milo had said in less articulate manner about how DeSantis shouldn't go up against Trump. I already did a video before that even dropped. But the Milo interview did make me more impassioned. I don't know why. That dude fired me up. Just well said. It's weird because he has the British accent and the flash and flair. He doesn't seem like he's not like a Fetterman wearing a hoodie and stuff. But he's whatever. He was with Breitbart and all that. But he has his pulse. I don't care what his presentation is actually cool. I don't care about your presentation. Do you have your heart, mind, and soul with the people? And Milo clearly did, at least in that interview. So he didn't change my mind, but he influenced me for sure. That was a dope interview. I'll never forget that one.
Brand of shirt, you have a certain brand of politics.
Right.
And this is what I mean by mobilization. We're not in an era of persuasion anymore. Everybody, there's so many, since the social media has disintermediated the traditional media aspects. And that's one of the things Andrew understood is that now it's part of your life. It's an aspirational lifestyle brand that you're either a progressive Democrat, a reactionary Republican, a Trump guy wearing a red hat, or somebody that believes in AOC and thinks Trump's a devil. That's all fine. You've bought into that, and that's where you go. So people say it's divided. Yes, the country's been divided before, and people got to come to this and make their own decisions. But it's very divided, and the media has definitely added to that by reinforcing and also presenting to people the news in a certain way.
Fantastic. So, thank you. That section's done. Next section, Trump, the campaign, all of that. Does he find you or do you find him? Are you two guys looking for each other? What is
This is amazing stuff right here.
it? What happens between the two of you?
Well,
How
he
do you
comes.
first
He
meet?
comes. I in 2010, I'm making these films for Dave Bossie, Citizens United. I just made Generation Zero, which is about the financial collapse, and that's where I kind of made my chops in the conservative media area. We were on Fox. That film is about this new generation that's not going to own anything, right? So I made that film in 2009. So I'm making.
So you see, I talk about Ron DeSantis cozying up to the establishment. A lot of people don't like Steve Bannon because he's former intelligence and he's former Goldman Sachs, right? Is it Goldman Sachs? He was with one of the bigger banks. Let me look that up real quick. He's former, yeah. After his military service, he worked for 2 years at Goldman Sachs. So he's tied into the establishment as much as anybody, but at least the message he has is a populist message. Donald Trump went after him, calling him Sloppy Steve. Donald Trump had the nerve to call Steve Bannon his pupil. He said that Steve Bannon was his student. That's how crazy it is. That's how crazy Trump is at times. That would be like Skywalker calling Obi-Wan Kenobi his Padawan. That's how wild it is. or Yoda. It would be like Luke Skywalker looking at Yoda and then being like, Yoda was my Padawan. That's how wild it is. So I'll call it out what I see, but just because Steve Bannon has establishment ties doesn't mean I won't roll with him. So what I'm seeing with DeSantis, it's deeper than that. It's the problem is establishment ties, and then you don't have a populist approach to where you are right now, potentially running for president against Trump.
Films. I'm making 3 films for the 2010 midterm, all about, and I'm editing for Bossy, and Bossy calls me up and says, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, what do you mean what I'm doing? I'm at your studio editing these 3 films that we got to get out in 4 weeks. Yeah. He says, well, can you go to New York? I go, no, I can't. He says, well, you got to go with me. I'm going to see Donald Trump. And I go, well, look, I don't need to see Donald.
You see this? I love this, man. I watched this so many times. So he's like, you said you want me to go to New York? This is 2010. You want me to go to New York to see Donald Trump? He's like, what? I got work to do. I don't see what you want me to see Donald Trump for.
Donald Trump. I don't know Donald Trump. I don't care to know Donald Trump. He goes, well, you got to come with me because he's thinking of running for president. And I said, of what country? And so I get on the train and we're talking. We go up there on Amtrak, and I said, now, I'm there for one reason. I'm the Tea Party populist guy. I'm supposed to explain to him, because Dave's a traditional limited government conservative. Right. He loves the Tea Party, but he doesn't quite get what this whole thing's about. So he's going to walk through the whole thing of a primary and all the technical stuff. I'm going to add the juice. So we go there, and it's amazing. We sit in the same conference room that 6 years later, the Billy Bush weekend and all this stuff is going to play out. The exact same spot. In fact, Trump and I sit kind of in the same location where the final decision on not doing the TV shows about Billy Bush weekend, which is really what saved his candidacy.
What's your first read of the guy? What's his aspect? What did you think?
Well, I was not looking, I had no interest in the meeting because I'd never watched the show. I just remembered him as a guy that was bankrupt all the time and a guy Goldman Sachs would never finance. So he's not in my radar scope, just a promoter. I get in there and I was number one, blown away by his presence. People like Palin and Obama and these people, there's something about their charisma and something about their ability to own a room. Trump walks in and he owns a room. There's a presence about the guy that I was not, because I didn't take him very seriously. We sit down, it's a 2-hour meeting. He doesn't know a lot because he's not supposed to. It's not that it's all about politics and very specific. And he doesn't know any policy, which he shouldn't. He's a real estate guy and a TV guy. He doesn't know any policy. Dave's walking through this. But what struck me, I talk about.
I'm going to pause this for a second and go to casual. Yeah, we'll do a live non-political. I do have a non-political channel, but the politics are so hot right now. I just got to go with where my passion is. And I only have so much time in the day, but we'll do a non-political on a different channel. This channel is just going to be straight politics. You know, it's funny. The algorithm really is favorable when I do more like Tim stuff. It's weird. Other than that, I don't get much favor there. But I want to address this comment here. Nico, I think Nico's making fun of the wall, if I'm not mistaken, which is fine. But let me just address this. Nico555 says, building the wall was Bannon's idea, right? That was gold. So here's what the wall was about. The wall was a marketing idea. Some of the more technical, and they didn't really know how to solve the border problem. I have a clip where in one of the previous videos where I talked about Peter Navarro saying like, man, we didn't know what to do. We're going to do the wall. We couldn't get the funding for it. So it's about what rallied people. Lock her up. I hated that slogan. I still hate that slogan. And if you're going to do a slogan like that, you got to be about it. So I didn't like the lock her up. I didn't like build the wall either because building the wall makes sense in certain areas on the border, but it's not like that's your rallying cry. But what Bannon was about was marketing and reaching people. And that build the wall it caught on. Trump would never have won in 2016 without the phrase build the wall. So is it a stupid idea? No, it's just like a small piece of the puzzle of the immigration crisis that represented something that rallied people up to get a populist president, or as close to a populist president as we've ever had, other than Andrew Jackson, into office. So at the end of the day, I'm perfectly fine with build the wall because it wasn't like a negative one. To lock her up, I was not for it. And they use that as the same thing. They're like, that rallies people up, so we'll just do lock her up. And then when they got into office, they found out, well, we really didn't even need to build the wall. The Remain in Mexico policy was good enough. So that's what happened with that stuff. What is this here? Let me look at this comment. Jerry says, hey, bud, reach out to Razorfist. He's been on the Something Ain't Right with the Son DeSantis push from the establishment shields. I will reach out because I haven't heard many people talk about it. Yeah, something don't smell right. That's plain and simple. I'm going to go back to this story from Bannon real quick. I'm just in the mood to listen to it. I just love this story. Bannon's a great storyteller, and this is like how Trump started. Like, this is historic stuff. Like, they'll be reading about this hundreds of years from now. If we don't destroy the planet with nuclear warfare or whatever else, they'll be reading about this.
Exact same spot. In fact, Trump and I sit kind of in the same location where the final decision on not doing the TV shows about Billy Bush weekend, which is really what saved his candidacy.
What's your first read of the guy? What's his aspect? What did you think?
Well, I was not looking, I had no interest in the meeting because I'd never watched the show. I just remembered him as a guy that was bankrupt all the time and a guy Goldman Sachs would never finance, so he's not in my radar scope.
You hear how frank Steve Bannon's talking about this? It's because Trump is a mascot. People are confused by that. They don't understand it. So Trump represents the people. And for DeSantis to not have the respect to address Trump's concerns, that is disrespect. I don't give a damn about Donald Trump. That's disrespect to the people.
I had no interest in the meeting because I'd never watched the show. I just remembered him as a guy that was bankrupt all the time and a guy Goldman Sachs would never finance, so he's not in my radar scope, just a promoter. I get in there and I was number one, blown away by his presence.
If you're going to populist left, you need to look at this and see this. That's why I say try Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore has a presence. I haven't seen him in person, but at least on his show, he has a charisma. He has a presence. He's a comedian. That humor is big. So Bannon's like, whoa, this guy could be the vessel to get my populist ideas on the mainstream level. That's what the populist left doesn't have. They don't. Bernie was kind of that person, the closest you could have, and that's why Dore and all these people rose up out of the Bernie movement, even though he couldn't get to where Trump got.
People like Palin and Obama and these people, there's something about their charisma and something about their ability to own a room.
And he even acknowledged Obama with the charisma as well. I don't agree with Palin, but there's something that gravitates you to Palin. And she was very attractive in her younger days, so that's part of the presentation. But I wouldn't put her in Obama and Trump's category.
Trump walks in and he owns a room. There's a presence about the guy that I was not, because I didn't take him very seriously.
And that's why DeSantis has no chance. That's what Milo was talking about on with him.
We sit down. It's a 2-hour meeting. He doesn't know a lot because he's not supposed to. It's not that he's not. It's all about politics and very specific. And he doesn't know any policy.
He was a establishment Democrat bootlicker in New York his whole life, up to this point where he meets Steve Bannon. That's what he was. So that's what Steve's talking about. He doesn't know anything. He just, whatever he sees from the establishment is what he believes.
Which he shouldn't. He's a real estate guy and a TV guy. He doesn't know any policy. Dave's walking through this. But what struck me, I talk about populism, and I say, I go, I give him the history of populism, Andrew Jackson, William Jennings Bryan, bring him up to date with Ross Perot and everything like that. And he turns to me and he goes,
That's what I
That's
am.
what I am. I go, what? He goes, a popularist. I go, no. It's populist.
This is my favorite part. I have to see this again. I've seen it so many times. I've already talked about it in the channel. This is my favorite part.
I give him the history of populism, Andrew Jackson, William Jennings Bryan, bring him up to date with Ross Perot and everything like that. And he turns to me and he goes, That's what I am. I go, what? He goes, a popularist. I go, no. It's populist. And he goes, yes, I got it. Popularist. And I go, no. It's populist. And after I said it the second time, Bossy gives me the kick under the table. He says populist. I let it go. And then he turns on.
It's funny how it's a Freudian slip maybe, or because I'm not for popular rule, but it is kind of something that you could separate from being a populist is popularist. And maybe that's why Trump had some issues. That's why he was bad on 2A, because it was, we had the awful shootings and a lot of people in the country didn't know what to do. They're not strong 2A. So he was like, what's popular? I'm a popularist. Donald Trump wanting to spend the money during the pandemic. I want to do another check, which I agreed with because, I wanted just the check for the people, not the other spending, but we knew it was going to cause inflation. But Trump was like, I think he was like, this is popular. I'm a popularist. Now, looking back at it, that's probably what Trump really views himself as. What's popular?
He turns on about China. And we get into this conversation about China. And we talk about trade. We talk about non-trade barriers, talk about the South China Sea. We talk about currency manipulation. Of a 2-hour meeting, the China thing is 20 or 30 minutes long. It's the one thing he knows. And I realize he's regurgitating my guy Lou Dobbs. But I'm telling you, it's the one thing he's engaged and he's got well-formed opinions. So we leave the meeting.
And Trump was great on China. I have to look back in my history, but of my lifetime, he's the greatest president to handle China relations that we've ever had.
Bossy says, I'm on the train on the way back. Bossy says, what you think? And I'm sitting there going, I've been thinking about it. His thing on popularist, I was wrong and he was right. And he goes, what do you mean? He says, you wouldn't let off on that. That's why I kicked you. And I said, yeah, I was trying to give him the standard thing. He thinks of things differently. Mm-hmm. He is a popularist. He's not a populist. He thinks about things from himself. And I said, that's pretty amazing. He was actually right and I was wrong. And Bossy goes, yeah, I could tell that. And then he says, what else? What about this China thing? You guys were on China forever. I go, Dave, here's the amazing thing. I can't, in Washington, D.C., outside maybe some nudge at a think tank, have the conversation I just had with this guy in China. Nobody will talk about non-trade barriers. Nobody will talk about currency manipulation. They couldn't.
And how does that relate to common people? We shipped all our jobs. We basically transferred all our jobs to places like China. Can't find clothing made in America. People who make clothing, who want to do factories in America can't do it. That's what he's talking about. It's not like some highbrow thing. This is affecting common people at the basic level. That's why Detroit looks like Detroit, the East Side. So I look at people like Unholy Rome, props to him, but they miss this. The reason why you're on the East Side, Rome, and you got to put libraries up and you got to get water and food for the people, which is great. That is great stuff, bro. But you miss this part. Why is it like that in places like Ohio? And that's why you see J.D. Vance win and Michigan couldn't get it done. But why do you see that in these cities, St. Louis, Detroit, and others? It's because of this.
Pick South China Sea. He talks about the South China Sea. I said, it's amazing to me. He actually has what I think is one of the biggest threats, if not the biggest threat we got coming. He understands China better than anybody in the city. And that is going to be, and he says, what do you think here? I said, no chance this guy will run. It will never happen. He'll never run for president. But
so you sort of park him.
I just kind of dismiss it. Yeah. And later, Bossy gave him 2 things to do. I said, you got to have 2 asks of this guy.
This is very common when you're going for a job. Somebody might lay, I think I like you for this job. but I don't know. I want to prove it. So they'll give you a hint, maybe through secondary people or directly. They'll tell you, I need you to do this. I need you to work on this, and I need you to work on that. And they won't talk to you again because they want to see, are you really hungry? If you're hungry, you'll work on those things and you'll get back to me. It's a test. And that's what he's talking about here with Dave, testing Trump.
And Bossie did. He said, number one, you've got to give in the maximum, the $2,500, you got to give to every congressman and every senator who's running and make them come to Trump Tower, look you in the eye, shake your hand. It's not a marker, but you're getting into the system. So I think that came to $500,000 something. The second is you got to write a policy book. And so I would tease Dave. And Dave says, what do you think? I said, there's no chance he writes any checks. Zero. And I said, number two, he'll never write a policy book. Forget it.
Why did you know that about him? About the
I know guys like Trump. I just see Trump. He's not right. You're writing him a check. He's not writing you a check. It's not going to happen, right? Unless he's got some sort of problem in a city about a casino, You're not getting a check, okay? Not for some congressman from Kansas. His mind doesn't think like that. So I would keep teasing Bossie, and eventually I said, how's that 500,000? How many of those meetings you had? How many hands did you shake in Trump Tower, right? And eventually Dave calls me up. He wrote a $250,000 check, I think, to Karl Rove's general fund.
Oh, Lord. But he was just trying to get in the door. But we talked about Karl Rove a little bit earlier on. But you see, the test was, are you going to do these things? And Trump actually did it.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks to go and bitched and moaned about it the whole time. Now, here's the interesting thing. The guy who's a managing editor for me, Winton Hall, is one of the great ghostwriters out there. Once a year, we give him permission to ghostwrite a book. And Winton calls me up at like the end of this year and says, hey, I need time, and this one's going to take a little longer. I go, fine. I said, how long you need? He says it could take up to, 4 months or 5 months. I said, this crap you type out for these conservatives takes 30 days. I said, who takes 4 months? He says, I got a guy that's got the biggest advance in the history of Regnery. And I go, Regnery, advance? They don't give advances. I mean, it's not their business model. What is this? He go, it's Trump. I go, are you kidding me? He says, yes, it's to write a policy book. I go, you're kidding me. And that book, I think the subtitle is Make America Great Again. That book, if you read it, and look at the 2016. This book came out, I believe, in 2011, and it's an amazing book. Winton Hall is a fantastic writer. He said Trump was so engaged in this book. This book has many of the foundational issues that Trump ran on later. So it's quite amazing. But Trump, there was some element of him that always looked at Obama and thought he could take Obama on. But I think he was smart enough to realize he would have gotten crushed going after Obama. He was.
It's funny that he says that. DeSantis doesn't seem to have that same self-awareness. And I will be fully against DeSantis if he doesn't. You can see I'm team MAGA, and that includes Trump as the mascot. I'm fully against DeSantis. Don't like what I see. And you see this here. Trump had the awareness to say, even though he didn't agree with Obama, it's like, I can't take. People view Obama, believe it or not, Obama was viewed as a I don't really know if he was viewed as a populist, but he was viewed as like maybe even almost like a little bit of an outsider. I know that sounds strange, but I was alive during those times. Trust me. He was viewed as different. I think that's the best way to say it, unique. And Trump knew that, even though Trump was like, this dude's a fake, even back then, he was like, I can't even challenge him. So why would you challenge Trump at this point if you're DeSantis? You would support Trump. You're a young man. You got plenty of years ahead of you. The only reason would be that you're a snake.
Smart enough to kind of wave off on it, but the seeds of his interest was enough to start taking meetings, and Dave gave him a very detailed presentation on don't worry about the general election. You worry about the election that's in front of you. Worry about winning the Republican nomination. Dave had a quite detailed map of that, so you could tell it was serious. And then later on is what happened is Bossie starts putting on these cattle calls very early on in the system. So Trump showed up at CPAC. He gave a great speech, and then the first one I remember, I think was in late 2013 or early 2014. It was in New Hampshire. Yeah. And I go up, and they had a cattle call. It was Rand Paul. It was Newt Gingrich. It was Ted Cruz. You had all the kind of conservatives around with the media all over Cruz and all over Rand Paul. They were the hot things. I think Walker was there too, I think. And Trump spoke. And what I would do when these guys would speak, I would sit off to the side and just watch the audience. And Trump gave a totally non-traditional Republican speech. He talked about trade. He talked about immigration. He talked about, and not in political speak. Every other guy came up there. I don't care if it's Rand Paul or Mike Lee or Newt Gingrich or Ted Cruz, all of them.
Textbook, all of them with the textbook talking points, textbook uniparty type stuff, the boring, same old, same old.
They all speak in a political vernacular.
Yeah.
Now, these were grassroots leaders, Tea Party, and the people you have to convince in New Hampshire to work for you. Trump comes up, totally off script, just stream of consciousness. I think he had a speech, never even looked at it. Stream of consciousness. These people are leaning forward. People are clapping. He's
You can look at the body language.
getting standing ovations. And I'm sitting there going, this is amazing. So we were doing our radio show, and Trump was going to come and do an interview with us. We got Sam Nunberg to give us an interview. So I'm sitting there going, look, this guy's on fire, right? And you could tell in the room, he was kind of owning the room. And Jeremy Peters,
I got the same feeling from Kathy Barnett.
as my buddy from the New York Times, we interviewed Jeremy. Jeremy's beat, he had covered Andrew for years. Jeremy's beat at the Times is cover
Except she's more knowledgeable, smarter.
the crazy grassroots of the Republican Party, right?
Yeah.
So we interviewed him, and I'm sitting there with Jeremy. I go, "Hey, Jeremy, I got Trump coming up next. If you're good, I'll get you 5 minutes for Trump."
Who else gives you the same vibes? Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, Carrie Lake. DeSantis has governed well. I'm not against DeSantis and how he's governed Florida, but he's not with this. He's not in this realm. I wouldn't put him in the names if this discussion of populists like Carrie Lake and Kathy Barnett and Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene.
You can interview him. Jeremy looks at me and goes, "Steve, if my editor found out that I even talked to Donald Trump, I'd be fired." And I go, "Why?" And he says, "He's not a candidate. This is just show."
Remember, everyone, including myself, thought later on I thought he was going to win, like right before the election, because Morning Joe actually, they convinced me that he was going to win. Because back then, believe it or not, they had Trump on. Remember, there was the disavow, the Duke, whatever dude. I don't want to say his full name, but Trump was a clown. When he came down the escalator, everyone thought he was a clown. And that's what they're trying to do now. They're trying to get him back to that clown status.
There's a publicity stunt. There's a marketing stunt.
Right.
And so, and by the way, CNBC, MSNBC, they're all up there. The only interview he had all day was Breitbart Radio and then Breitbart News. Nobody would even consider him, and he owned the room. And then I started noticing as he would go to these things, he was owning these rooms. I mean, you could tell in these grassroots things that Bossie kept putting on.
My sense was
Just a great interview. That's the clip I'll play there. And he's talking about David Bossie, who was his deputy campaign manager for Trump. One of those unsung, he wasn't a populist, but one of those unsung kind of heroes behind the scenes that I hope history tells the tale of, that helped Donald Trump in 2016 in the most magical run for president ever. Man, hopefully you can see why I just always go back to it. Sometimes I'm just in the mood where I just need something in the background. I'll just play that video. That is the history. That's the history that they're going to try to erase from the history books. In that video, he also talks about Trump taking out the young guns. I didn't mark the time frame, or I'd go to that spot right now. DeSantis, to me, if DeSantis is an honest actor, then he would clear things up behind the scenes with Trump. It's not a style I can get behind. You put the people first beyond your aspirations. Donald Trump should be treated like an incumbent. He's not doing that. That's where the heart of the people, whether it's true or not, I'm not saying he's not, obviously, but that's where the people are with him. That's how he should be treated. I talked about this before. If Trump turned on Carrie Lake, which very well could happen, Marjorie Taylor Greene, which he turned on Bannon. He could turn on anybody. You think they'd be silent like this? No, they wouldn't be. They would say at least something. Donald Trump is exposing the motives of DeSantis. I talked about Carrie Lake. I'll repeat it again. Maybe some people just jumped into the live. Carrie Lake was the number one MAGA figure of the midterm. Marjorie Taylor Greene is the leader of the movement, but celebrating Lake as the newcomer, as the shining star, would be Trump's biggest win of the midterms. And look what's happening over there. We're not getting that moment. I talked about Paul Ryan. I talked about the young guns. I didn't show this. This is a meme if you're just listening. It says, betray the president, get in line. And if you're Team DeSantis, own it. You're here too. I'm not against you, but you've got the little dagger. A2 Brutus. Next, Mike Pence, Barr, General Kelly, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell, Lisa Murkowski, Romney, Bolton, Roberts, Geraldo, Tom Cotton, the Bushes, Scaramucci. They're all Team DeSantis. At the very least, it should cause you the time to pause. Meghan McCain. Last night was the final nail in Trump's political, figuratively, coffin because too many of his suck-up duds lost an unlosable election. Now is the moment for DeSantis to take charge of the ship. This is the election where the establishment GOP threw people like Blake Masters under the bus. And then now they know that. McCain knows that. So why is she not acknowledging that and then all of a sudden pivoting to DeSantis? You stop playing games with me. It might fool some people, but it's not fooling me. I talked about Karl Rove and Kathy Barnett at the beginning of the live. Jack Posobiec talked about it. They actually were attacking Fetterman to boost Shapiro. Not even that. So let's go back to the Karl Rove thing again. Karl Rove jumped into the Pennsylvania race to say that Josh Shapiro is not as extreme as Fetterman. Why would you do that? These are both parentheses D, anti-populist people. They're attacking Fetterman to boost Shapiro against Mastriano, who was endorsed by Trump, and then also to big up Oz, in my opinion, who is a Mitt Romney. They had no problem. See, they would have had a problem if Trump had endorsed Kathy Barnett. So you see, if the race was Kathy Barnett versus Fetterman, Karl Rove wouldn't have come into the race saying Josh Shapiro isn't as extreme as Fetterman because that would have helped Kathy Barnett, if you're following me. So that's it. So Jack Paul, the establishment backstab is in full swing. This was before the election. October 23rd, this was being discussed. Jack Posobiec said, never seen anything like this. Complete and open betrayal. This was the picture here. Votes to release criminals 225 times. Against criminals, Shapiro. Pardons criminals, Fetterman. That's Karl Rove, snake in the grass. Pro DeSantis playing these games. I was not for Oz, but you can clearly see some games are being played here. Clearly see these ads here. Fetterman way more radical than Shapiro, paid for by, I don't know if it was directly or indirectly Rove. I have to look into that. Crazy. Jack said he'd never seen anything like that. I haven't followed politics this closely before. I've never seen anything like that myself. So that's where, hopefully that explains where I am. I'll look at some comments that will be basically what I wanted to talk about today on this whole topic. It is, I think this is signal. This is not noise. And if we're going to have this battle, why are we wait? What are we waiting for? Why would we wait to have this battle? Now, after the midterms, I didn't like Trump starting the battle before the midterms. That was a mistake. But now the midterms are over. It's done. All we're doing is vote counting. Now, you could say you could rally around the narratives behind Carrie Lake. I agree, because it's a political media battle now. They're trying to make Katie Hobbs look like she's ahead for as long as possible. So it makes it look like there's a race. But if they had counted all the votes at one time, it wouldn't look that same way, in my opinion. So there is a media battle, and I would say that Trump should know everything that I just talked about. Trump should have a team. I would love to ask Peter Navarro, MAGA got set up. Why didn't you see this coming? What happened? What's the next move? MAGA got played. I don't know what the next move is, but I can go back and look. Trump should have had the people to know this was in place. I think DeSantis knew what was happening. I think DeSantis knew the whole time, whether it was directly or indirect, that MAGA was going to get set up and played. He was going to star in Florida, and then Trump would then he probably didn't mind that it got leaked to Trump because he wanted Trump to do this stuff, to say the names. Then the media comes with the wrap-up smear, told you MAGA was whack, told you the people didn't want the MAGA policies. Now look at Trump, he's unhinged, he's deranged, he's crazy, he's stupid, he's a clown, and DeSantis just stays quiet the whole time while he had a great speech after he won Florida. I wouldn't be surprised if DeSantis knew that whole thing because he's tied into the same guys who are behind it. Why wouldn't he know? And he wants to be president. So let me look in the comments, see how people are feeling here. Metalopoly says, why didn't Bannon ever run for office? Did he just want to play kingmaker behind the scenes? I don't think Bannon would describe himself as kingmaker, and I wouldn't describe him as kingmaker either, but you could argue that in the case of Trump. See, what Bannon does with War Room, he gives fake MAGA. He's not, if he were a kingmaker, he would be more against and attack people like Oz. Steve Bannon has never attacked Oz, even though he knows MAGA is not down with Oz. He knows Oz is one of Trump's biggest mistakes. He's never attacked Oz. So I don't think he's a kingmaker. I think he's a true populist who just wants to give people a message and let the people decide. I think Bannon's take on Oz and whoever else might be labeled as fake or not, that's all opinion. I think Bannon's take is, I trust the people, let the people decide. So I don't know if he would call himself kingmaker, and he would never run for office because he couldn't win. It's running for office takes something special. Bannon doesn't have the looks. He doesn't have the presentation. He doesn't have the package. That's why he was looking at Trump. He was like, damn, Trump has the package here. Whatever that charisma of walking into the room, everybody doesn't have that. I don't walk into a room and own a room. Steve Bannon, he might not. I don't think he walks into a room and owns a room, not at least in the way that Trump did. So that's why he wouldn't run for office. And he doesn't have that. You have to be a narcissist in a way. Steve Bannon is not. His War Room show is the opposite of narcissism. All he does is give a platform for other people. So I don't think that. I think that's why he would never run for office. I think if he thought he could, he would. Exactly, GB. You could say he's not electable in that way. Dave Smith, I threw this out. Thank you, Jordan, for stopping by. I really would like some fresh blood. I think this is, politically speaking, I want to see Jimmy Dore announced as early as possible. Easy for me to say. I don't know what the technicalities are for running for president and what Dave Smith would have to cancel or drop or change. But I tweeted earlier today at the Libertarian Party at Dave Smith, when is he announcing? Because this whole thing with Trump and DeSantis, I don't like it. I would like to see Dave Smith in the arena fight for some airtime and keep it about the topics and the issues. And Dave Smith, to me, is a populist. He's a libertarian populist. And I would love to hear that. I would like to hear Jimmy Dore announce and Dave Smith announce as early as possible, because Trump's announcing next week, so we can get a balance in the message. I know they don't have the big platform, the big voice, but whatever they could get out there I will take it. So I don't want to push Dave to do it before. He hasn't said he's going to do it. I kind of want to push him to make sure he does do it, but I don't know. I'm not privy to everything behind the scene. And yeah, I would be, if Dave could make an agreement to be like running with Trump, that would never happen, but it would probably be more likely a Carrie Lake. But I want Carrie Lake to govern Arizona and prove herself as a governor is what I would want her to do. So the year of the comedians. Yes, Jordan, it would be, wouldn't it? Jordan Lott says, the year of comedians, Jimmy Dore, Dave Smith, 2024. I think they're cool. I don't think they have any beef. They don't see the world the same way, but that would be cool if they could get together. I'm still open to Tulsi as VP for Trump. I really am. I know she's bad on 2A, but, and maybe some other things that I mean, what I'm for Medicare for all. You would say I'm bad on that too. So, and she would be VP. She wouldn't be running the show. I would prefer DeSantis, but obviously that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Follow the money. Bishop says it too. Follow the money. If you have any doubts which Rhino is masquerading as MAGA, follow the money. I don't think DeSantis has ever claimed to be MAGA, though. And to be fair to DeSantis, he's run Florida in an excellent manner. And his argument could be that I think I can cozy up to these guys and I would still be the best person. So that's the pro DeSantis argument against that. My argument is I don't trust it. Jimmy Dore's been on fire. And what I like about Jimmy Dore, he's fearless. He's a populist left guy. He's a Medicare for all guy. He's a student loan payoff guy. He's a big money spending guy. So obviously that's not where I am. But some of his positions on the pandemic, on the sunflower country, it causes some people on the populist left to call him a right-wing nut job. He brought on after the George Floyd stuff and all that, he brought on a Boogaloo boy. I don't know much about them, but he brought that person on for a discussion. And everybody's like, look, I told you Jimmy Dore is a right-wing nut job. He just had a dude on for a discussion. That's leadership. And I bring that up to say Jimmy Dore he has courage. He doesn't give a damn what you call him. Here are my principles. Go find some. And he cusses a lot. He'll say, go find some effing rocks to kick. I respect Jimmy Dore a lot. Love Jimmy Dore. So that's all I got. Let me stop ranting and raving and maybe find a non-political story to talk about on my other channel. We'll see wherever my energy's at. Let me know what the feedback's about. I'm gonna have to do more videos talking about this and other things. But one of my big things to talk about is Kevin McCarthy feeling a little bit of that heat under his collar. They're coming. I'm seeing good thoughts that they're coming for him. They're kind of laying the plan to come for him. So MAGA, go do it. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Gates, go get him. Go get that dude. Thanks a lot for stopping by. Appreciate it. Take care.